Good evening. This is the City of Twinsburg Planning Commission meeting for Monday, December 4th, 2023. Roll call.
Mr. Shipley?
Here.
Mr. Walker?
Here, ma'am.
Mr. Hogler?
Present.
Mr. Cohen?
Present.
Mr. Shebeck?
Present.
We could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Start this evening off with the work session, review of pending ordinance 121-2023. Lynn.
Okay, so this issue was brought to City Council by staff, and you have in front of you a draft of the ordinance 121, which is comprised of Environmental Commission duties found in Chapter 151 of the Administrative Code, and also Section 1103 of the Planning and Zoning Code. So some of the language is duplicated in the two different portions of the regulations. Some of the duties are different. The portion found in Title 11 in the Planning and Zoning Code tends to skew more towards site plan review duties associated with Planning Commission functions. The part in 1151 skews more towards establishing the commission, when will they meet, and how will the commission be seated. It allowed for a couple of teenage commissioners. That was added maybe in 2019. It looks like we're striking that because I think our current law director is saying we can't have these non-electors on commissions. There's no pathway for that to really happen. They could be advisory members, but not official paid commissioners. So there are more changes being requested in this language than just, hey, a lot of these duties don't match what is actually occurring. But that is the primary focus of the proposed amendments. We require environmental impact assessments on larger projects. We have Army Corps of Engineer review for wetland resources and surface water features. We have review by other federal and state agencies, and it's really just staff's sense that if we need review in addition to those review agencies, Planning Commission can hire professional services. In the past, the planning department or engineering department has budgeted for those professional services, and the administration will hire professional services if Planning Commission requests that or if staff feels that it's appropriate. Using Environmental Commission as the originator of hiring professional services, we've stricken that from I think it was in the 151 section. Yeah, if you go to page 3 of the ordinance, you'll see 15106, retaining professional services. That just has never occurred and isn't really the focus of the Environmental Commission. Yeah, and then above that, the budget, they don't propose a budget to council. Historically, they've had a budget allowed for activities and events. It's been through the Public Works Department, but it hasn't been a budget that is proposed to council. So also on page 3, you'll see in bold items F and G. So staff has added those items with the thought that this is really more reflective of what Environmental Commission is doing. Enhance the awareness, understanding, commitment, and active involvement of local Twinsburg residents in promoting stewardship of the city's natural resources through public education and outreach, volunteerism, and community events. Honestly, I think when staff wrote these, we thought if we could rename the commission to the Environmental Awareness Committee or Environmental Awareness and Sustainability Committee, we would have chosen to do that. The law director said, no, we can't change the name of it because I think the name appears in the charter. So they'll be still known as the Environmental Commission, but really the focus will
Awareness and sustainability.
will be, yeah, noted in this. And we have used the commission when we were writing the sustainability plan, and we've recently looked towards them to become more involved in implementing the sustainability plan. So therefore, that's how we came up with item G. That was important to put that in there. I mean, my only comment in regards to the items that are crossed out or that remain would be that most of what is remaining is very general and broad. Consider and make recommendations to the appropriate bodies regarding all matters of environmental interest appropriately referred to the commission. That's pretty general. That type of language appears a few times in this. Some of it may be redundant. But then when you get to page 3, again, you'll see item E, develop and implement through the administration and council community programs for the collection of recyclable materials, including hazardous waste. They do that, but again, we've gotten to this specific topic area of recyclable materials and hazardous waste. I don't see the need for that. We've already said anything that council or planning commission refers to you, we'd like you to take a look at. So that's just one item. Do we need that in there? And then that would also apply to let's see, there was something about trees. Maybe that's in 1103.
Yeah, it's at the top of the next
Yeah,
page.
on top of page.
It's letter A at the
Page
top of the
4.
last page 4, yeah.
Environmental Commission shall monitor and make written recommendations concerning tree preservation efforts. Okay, I think it means municipal tree preservation efforts. It doesn't say that, but I'm guessing that's what it means. And then item E says, the Environmental Commission shall consider all matters referred to it by council, planning commission, and the mayor. I mean, in my opinion, if we wanted Environmental Commission to consider tree preservation efforts, hey, could you guys sort of explore all the dead trees on McTiernan Parkway and make a recommendation for tree species that we should replace all the dead ash trees with? Or something specific like that would come to them as a recommendation from some other body, or we can leave it in there. It's not, it doesn't, I don't feel strongly about it, but it seems odd to me that we have mostly some very general duties, and then we have these couple very specific ones. Okay, we're going to leave tree preservation efforts, recycling, and then item B is the one that I really think we need to just even focus on the language. The Environmental Commission shall document, investigate, and recommend solutions to environmental complaints and concerns. If we're leaving that, I think it should be so referred to it by council or some, having complaints and concerns going directly to the commission that aren't referred to it takes this outside of what we just said the role is advisory to the council and the administration. So I don't know what anybody's sense of that is. I would strike item B. Okay, so this was already in here. I already struck this once. And then Matt Vizana said, I'm leaving some of these things in here. And I said, okay, well, I think you're wrong. And he said, well, if you think I'm wrong, then you go to planning commission and say so.
Which letter are you talking about right now specifically?
Item B,
Oh, you're still on B, okay, I
Yeah.
thought you were going, okay.
so,
Page 4 or 5B,
Last page, yeah. Or second last.
1103.11, subsection Bravo.
yes.
Got it.
So I don't know if we want to have a little discussion about that. I just see that, I mean, solutions to environmental complaints and concerns from the public, from,
Yeah, I don't know that, I mean, I guess I could see them if they were asked to do it
Yeah.
by one of the governing bodies.
Exactly.
But not by Joe, who lives at the corner, and he's really concerned about the dead trees on his tree lawn, and he asked the commission to.
That's covered in item E.
that's what,
Yeah.
that is my exact
Yeah,
point,
Which is why
Steve.
he says just, if you just strike B.
Because I don't anticipate anybody coming to the environmental commission meeting to,
It's
Complain
happened where
about that.
somebody maybe had a concern about coyotes or something, and they didn't understand a way to handle it, but on B, I put so referred by council and put an arrow to
Yeah,
E, which
to
is
E,
exactly what
right.
you just said.
So I wrote as referred to by council and put an arrow.
Yeah, same thing, that's.
I'm fine with striking it, because I don't think they've,
Have the capacity to really do all of that.
well, I
So-
think,
Document, investigate.
I think since its inception, when it was formed, I don't think they've actually heard any complaints. They usually come to council first.
Can I say something? So I think part of this is back from the history of 2023 and 22, we had an issue where, when development is happening and their trees are being cleared, and part of the concern was this document says the Environmental Commission should be involved in all of this. And, so there were people who were saying, hey, you didn't follow proper channels because you did not involve the Environmental Commission. And you should have involved them before you tore down all these trees and all that. And the reality is that is not the Environmental Commission's goal. And so I think at that point, we said, hey, we need to go back and say, all right, what is the Environmental Commission's goal? What is the need for them? And the reality is all of these things which were made a long time ago just don't apply. And so, like we said right now, it's just education. But I think that's where this is all coming from, where recently, people publicly were saying, hey, Environmental Commission, we're supposed to do this because it's in your rules. And they didn't do it.
And that's where it's coming from.
And that's where it's coming from.
In the past, when we had these regulations.
Right.
And we weren't implementing them, the administration, that was okay.
Right.
Oh, we have these on the books, we're not really doing it because we don't think it's appropriate, and that's okay, we can just choose to
Right.
not do that. But we have a new law director, we have a new mayor, and this administration is saying, no, that's not okay. If it says this is the process, then we should be doing it.
Right, well,
And so my concern has been, well, now you have two sections, so which section
Right, well,
am I doing here?
the other problem is, the people on the Environmental Commission, I was on there my first year of council, and, we choose the people that are on the Environmental Commission. We choose people on every commission. And these are residents that want to get involved. The residents just want to say, hey, we want to be involved in our community. What can we do? Just like you guys, we want to be involved. What can we do? And the people on the Environmental Commission mostly are not experts on tree services. They're not experts on water preservation and soil, and they're just not. And so, that one section where it says, to seek guidance, again, that wouldn't even come from them. That would come from council, come from planning, come from whoever, Army Corps of Engineers, all of these things. So really, this whole thing just needs to be turned into making them an advisory committee and an outreach and an educational board that educates on environmental issues, in my opinion. Everything else that is in there just needs to just go away.
So in 110311, why isn't it just E, the only one that remains?
I
mean, A, B,
Yeah.
C, and D are really just more detailed versions of E, which is an all-encompassing.
kind of. I'm okay with D if somebody had a notion about a standard in a code. In terms of a policy thing, I would be, I'm fine with leaving that we don't have to, that Planning Commission and Council doesn't have to initiate that Environmental Commission could initiate.
So you could get rid of A, B, and C and just keep D and E.
Yeah.
in that
So,
section.
I got a lot as the person who does this stuff for a daily
Yeah.
and as the lawyer. I mean, I'll tell you in the end, I think you can fold in 1103.11, what's left of it into the duty section. I don't
Yeah.
understand why there's a duty section and then there's environmental commission. I'm tracking exactly what Councilman Post said because we're all very well aware of specific projects where why wasn't environmental commission consulted? It's gumbo. We can say it out loud.
Right,
So,
for sure.
what I'm hearing is, this is more high-level policy advising if they want to, more so community outreach, awareness with regard to
Right.
what Matt's saying.
And they have had great comments in terms of
Yeah.
policy in the sustainability plan document, and really, we look to bring them
Sure.
into more involvement with implementation of that plan.
So page 2 of 5, 151.03, paragraph alpha. I'm going to read it out loud to make sure I'm reading this correctly.
Okay.
Review and make recommendations to the administration, city council, and various boards and commissions concerning matters of environmental.
That interest should not be stricken.
Okay, I just want to make sure. So that's the one little nitpick thing.
Got my email.
Dave and I both already nitpicked that one, yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
If you go down to new paragraph Delta, former paragraph Foxtrot, consider and make recommendations to appropriate bodies regarding all matter of environmental interest appropriately referred to the commission. By whom? Is it the public? Is it, I don't know if you want to get into those weeds, but the
I
by
don't,
whom?
that seems to me the same as item E.
Correct. I do think if you proceed to page 3 of 5, where you're talking about the new E, develop and implement through the administration and council, that is a much more in the weeds. I don't know how it could get folded in of if you throw in including but not limited to, if we want to talk about specific things like recycling. I'm not sure you need E on the next page with F, which does a really good job of kind of outlining duties. Consider policy recommendations. So paragraph Foxtrot, you've got enhanced awareness, community outreach, things that Councilman Post was talking about. And then in golf, you've got, more of the policy advisement stuff. When requested by council. If you're looking to, I think you can get rid of the E on the next page where it says the Environmental Commission shall consider all matters referred to it by council, planning commission, the mayor, by taking that language and actually dovetailing it on to the end of golf on page 3 of 5. When requested by council, comma, planning commission, comma, and or the
Yeah.
mayor. I honestly think all of, with the exception of section 2, 3, and 4, I think you can get rid of the entirety of 1103.11 and fold everything into 151.03 duties. The other part with regard to the document, investigate, and recommend, I think that's going exactly in the opposite direction of what was the policy concern that was espoused by Councilman Post earlier, which is this is more of advisory and public outreach, vice. You're going to be a fact-finding and investigatory body. And I think even if there was ever a time that Environmental Commission on its own wanted to make a statement or a recommendation on environmental complaints and concerns, which those aren't specifically defined either. It could be coyotes, it could be dog poop. I think you just extract B
Yeah, they've
on
had
page
some
4 or
interest
5.
lately in
Yeah.
lawn watering.
I mean, yeah, so I think you can get all of that, just X out the entirety of 1103.01 and put a little dovetail on golf on page 3 of 5 by the council, the mayor, the usual players. Because you have two things going on without it. One, you got redundancy, and two, you've got one provision that talks about very specific fact-finding, hearing type stuff. Like, I think, for example, Civil Service Board, they got like a little bit more of investigatory fact-finding issues, right, Councilman Post? That's-
Honestly, I've never been on the Civil Service Board, so I am not sure.
Based on your,
Lynn might
based
have.
on your understanding of how
Yes.
they operate. Right.
Yes.
And that's, you guys, when I say you guys, the whole of council, the idea is more to stray away from having an environmental commission acting in that type of role, and more so, again, policy advising and public outreach,
100%.
community involvement.
100%.
So I think you can get rid of all of
Okay. I agree with everything
1103
Michael
decimal
just
11.
said.
And I'll just say, as somebody who was really trying to scrutinize when we were going through Gumbo, and Mr. Chairman, you remember I had all these questions. When you have a paragraph anywhere in a code that allows something to happen, those who are wanting one desired outcome or the other are going to utilize it, and it's up to the folks who write the code to frame it on how it's supposed to be used. So I think this is great that we're doing this, and that's all I've got. Thank you. And I'll give you my red line version right here.
Okay.
I mean, everything that Michael said, for the most part, I followed pretty much all of it. I tried making notes, but there's a lot to it.
Yeah.
Well, other comments or questions either related to that or anything different?
The biggest question I had when Councilman Post was giving us the backstory, being newer to the community, I caught the tail end of it. So if someone legitimately has an environmental concern, what is their point of action to take? This was more of a procedural issue someone was trying to use.
Right.
What ways can they bring awareness to it, and if they legitimately
About a
had it?
specific issue?
If
Like-
they literally had issues about the trees, if that was the issue versus more of a procedural one?
Well, my guess is first, what they should do is they would call City Hall, and they would
Right.
talk to the department heads here, the service department, they would talk to
So
city
then
council, they would talk to the mayor, they would talk to all the people in City Hall first, and then City Hall, if they chose to, that's how it should be and what we're
Through the
saying.
mayor,
Through the mayor, we could say, hey,
Section
maybe
E
we
would then
should
bring
give this
it
to the
up.
Environmental Commission.
Right. Right.
But they would never contact the Environmental Commission on their own first.
Actually,
ever.
somebody could probably come in public forum at the planning
Right.
commission meeting and raise the question of, at that time, we would have discussion with
Yeah.
planning department and determine whether or
Engineering,
not
yeah.
we needed to bring in a consultant
Right.
or an expert or.
Now, with Project
By
Gumbo,
council, planning commission, and/or the mayor would then, that would be the vehicle.
Correct.
Yeah.
so with Project Gumbo, they did go and talk to the Environmental Commission and said, it says right here that you're all supposed to investigate, and the Environmental Commission did go out there, I believe.
Yeah.
I know many of them did. And they walked it and they looked at it. But just to give you a little the back history, the company that owns the land came in and they cleared all the land out. And they're saying, how could they have possibly cleared this land out when it didn't go through the proper channels with the Environmental Commission? And that was their argument, whereas the reality is the Environmental Commission doesn't do that.
Right.
And they own the land, so they own the land. They cut the trees down.
And Ed, even if somebody came to the Environmental Commission, I mean, there's a council, who's council rep for Environmental Commission?
Environmental, this year is it Daisy?
Might be.
It was Daisy, and then I was last year, and then this year might be Labby, is it Councilman Labby?
But the
Yeah, well, I
point
think it
being
might
is,
be.
I think it's Councilman
because
Labby.
they're smart and always having a council member at all the boards and commissions, even if somebody doesn't go through basically what Councilman Post is saying, normal chain of command, they can say something to the Environmental Commission, but you got a council member there and say, okay, I see something I need to hear about. So-
And that is exactly what happened afterwards, because I was at that Environmental Commission meeting, and I spoke to them afterwards and said, well, because they all had no idea what was going on. So I said, let me give you all the backstory, exactly what happened. So I got them up to speed, and I said, you can look at it. I said, but here's what's going on, And I agree 100%. There's a council person there. Good call.
This is a good refinement.
Yes.
Ed, anything else?
No, that was
Steve?
my question.
Basically, housekeeping is long overdue.
Yeah.
Right.
As I recall, the Environmental Commission was formed many years ago. Basically, the object was to spearhead recycling,
Okay.
get the community recycling. That was before Dutch elm disease,
Right.
emerald ash borer,
Yeah.
which we've seen happen with all these trees.
Yeah.
But as David said, property owners have the right to develop their property.
Yes.
We can't tell them, you can't cut down the trees, we can tell them you have to replace them. But I think this is long overdue, and needed to be overhauled, because it kind of got lost, I think.
Well, and, Larry Finch was staff to the Environmental Commission for a bit and worked with the group on sustainability issues. And then when I came on board, I was made staff to Environmental Commission, and we really emphasized public outreach on clean water issues to meet our reporting for our wastewater treatment plant. And we did a big Earth Day event a good few years in a row before COVID. And they did the shredding and hazardous waste. They did a lot of work with the Native Plant Committee. They helped orchestrate getting guest speakers. So but all of those activities and events were public outreach and education events.
They've done great work. But this preceded a lot of the current regulations that are out there with development now. The Corps of Engineers wasn't as aggressive as they are now.
Yeah.
And a lot of regulations and everything have shifted since the time this was formed.
Yeah.
But as I recall, initially it was to try and get the community to start recycling. Because, what do you mean curbside recycling? Put this stuff in a bin? You gotta sort all this stuff.
Well, and the history similar for similar committees. Some of them are called environmental awareness committees in other cities around here. You're exactly right. There's a big difference between the public outreach and Section 106 review, wetlands review, 401, 404, ... So.
No, I'm good with it.
Craig?
Yeah, I mean, all the discussions you guys had all make sense. I had the same concern maybe that Ed first asked, like how does someone even bring this up to the city? I guess you answered, they just call the city. Well, I guess what if action doesn't get made, no one advises or goes to the environmental committee? What's someone's action at that point, just to?
So you're saying if someone does,
So they bring
someone goes to the
issue
city?
up and it just gets pushed to the
I
side,
assume they would come to either council meeting or
Correct.
to a planning commission meeting.
raise it.
And raise the issue in the
There.
public forum,
Yeah.
and then
And if they still don't get heard, they run a candidate.
Well, they do that now. If someone is not pleased with something that when they call the city hall or whatever, and that is the whole point of city council, is that we are the checks and balances to make sure that,
Right.
Mayor Scafidi and the departments that they're doing. So we're where the public goes to, but,
So if it's environmental, it's still there, it's not to this environmental committee.
A lot of the issues are going to go to engineering first, probably.
Right, well, and for example, Arbor Glen residents have complained about litter on the back side of their housing development. It drops off pretty hard there into the ravine, into Tinker's Creek. Hey, there's litter, people are dumping back here. So that's a call to City Hall staff. The complaint is logged. A code enforcement officer goes out and looks at it, meets with residents, makes an evaluation. This investigate, evaluate, and make a recommendation is not going to happen through Environmental Commission. It's going to happen through City Hall staff. And if those residents were still unhappy with the outcome, then they could still contact their council person.
they'd probably call the mayor, or they would call
Or the mayor.
or the council person.
Okay.
They'll go to round table and talk to.
That's right.
well said.
The one other thing I'd offer, Mr. Chairman, is, and I only this is about rereading the memo about so section 1103.11, so that's part of planning and zoning code.
Yes.
And 151 is the administrative code generally.
Yes,
Another argument I make for the fact that we should just recommend extracting 1103.11 is if you still have some semblance regarding the Environmental Commission within the planning and zoning code, someone made some, like a weird, they're called canons statutory argument, construction argument or something, saying, well, if you have something in the planning and zoning code here regarding the Environmental Commission, then obviously you expected them to do something with regard to planning and zoning issues. And from what I'm hearing, that's not the anticipated objective nor mission of it. So another
Correct.
reason I would say just section 1103.11, in order to
Gone.
align with the wisdom of council, you should go.
yeah.
And I think Matt would sign off on
I
it.
think that's the plan here. I think
So
that's
the idea is to
intent.
do that. I think that those are all good comments, Michael.
Thanks, sir.
And then taking D&E from that, and those putting in under the duties, which really they
Yeah.
kind of are.
Right.
And I think the other thing that we had said was potentially striking E from 15103, because it's kind of rolled into just the general as well.
Yeah, I agree.
So in order to do all that, is it possible to not move on this tonight with the recommendation and wait till our meeting in 2 weeks, where you would have an opportunity to update it and we'd have a,
I think if we could pass a motion tonight, we would like to take this to council next week. And I think in terms of incorporating all that, if you could make a motion just for the amendments to reflect,
what was tonight's, what was as amended at tonight's
yeah,
meeting.
yeah.
That's actually how I have it written. I
Yeah.
just didn't know if there was too much, or everybody was comfortable in supporting a motion based on that, and then you'll.
Yeah,
you'll-
I understand what we're removing, and we're adding council and mayor to the other line that Michael,
To 115103.
I gotta
And-
think you've got something written up, Mr. Chairman. We've been waiting for you to come back. You usually have stuff ready to go.
I don't mind letter E, where it says develop and implement through the administration and council community programs for the collection of recyclable materials, including hazardous waste. I think,
I mean, they do that.
they do that,
Yeah.
and I think that sets the tone of
Types of things
the
we
types of
want.
outreach they're supposed to do. In fact, if you put that there, you could, not necessarily the tree preservation efforts, but if you leave that in there and say, I don't even know if you need to say anything more, but I think it kind of sets the tone of the type of outreach they're supposed to be doing.
That's actually a good point. It's still sound.
What if you just, like, on G, or golf, that's
Yeah, I'm sorry.
what I would say.
Too much NATO phonetic alphabet.
So we
Golf.
say, council, plan commission and the mayor, such as, and then you kind of list a few things which they typically are responsible for, are asked to do.
Right.
Tree preservation,
This is where
I
you-
mean, we could do that
Recycling.
under item F, if we said, under public education and outreach, for example, sponsor an Earth Day event, volunteerism, sponsor a litter collection event,
Just throw
Community
including but not limited
events.
to the following.
yeah, sponsor
Yeah.
a recycling
See,
event.
that's the wording I like.
Yeah.
Not
But
limited.
not limited to.
Yeah, I like that a lot, including but not limited to, because I think F says public education, volunteerism, community events, all that. I think that's great by itself. I
And then
think
we could
have the
put
separate line.
such as, yeah,
But I think that should be in letter E, though, exactly like
Yeah.
Michael
Okay.
said.
Okay.
And there-
Exactly like you said.
the of it. The
Including but not limited to.
Basically says, things might pop up down the
Right.
yeah,
road.
these are things we have done in the
But
past.
just call specific attention, like you said,
Right,
to things like recycling. So,
right. I love that included but not limited to.
Cool.
Right there.
Okay,
we got it.
everyone's comfortable, and, yeah, and it's good stuff. Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, Michael, thank you for a lot of good comments in there to help put this
occasionally good
together.
for something, Mr.
That's it.
Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, well, so we'll have a motion basically as amended at tonight's meeting, because there's too many things to list them all, but you have the markup
Yeah.
and you have everything, and then they'll present it and you'll send out to us what you're gonna submit to council in
Yeah,
case.
we can do that,
Yeah.
yeah,
That
we
would be
should
good,
have
that way
that.
everyone can look at it, just in
Yeah.
case.
yeah.
When is the next council meeting?
Next week, next.
Tomorrow.
Tuesday. Well, tomorrow, and then.
Tomorrow and
Tuesday.
next Tuesday.
Yeah.
We take the fourth one every December, move it up because of Christmas.
So are you planning on presenting this tomorrow,
I think there may be a first
reading?
reading, but it may not be till the following week.
So I was thinking that tomorrow I would say that we met and let them know what was discussed,
Okay,
as opposed to having anything formal, and I'll let them know that by next week, the 12th, they should have something more formal written up, but let them know the thoughts. And that way, at least,
That would give an opportunity for Lynn to update it and then get
Right.
it back to everybody
Correct.
on the commission here
Yeah.
to just give it a perusal, just in case somebody saw something that they
Right.
were like, not,
Yeah.
that's not what they
I
understood.
actually had a motion typed up. I think I got it captured if you want me to make it. Unless you've got one.
No, I'm okay with that, but we have to wait till the regular meeting agenda, so,
I've got one. I'll tighten it up while we're.
Okay,
okay, while we're talking.
okay.
Yeah, but I think also if I present it tomorrow, if council says no, or Matt says no, we have to keep 1103.11 for whatever, like, at least we'll know. I'm just saying.
Better not, no.
Right, you know what I'm saying, though, but at least it puts it out there that if there's any conversation, at least we'll have that before we
Yeah.
do all this work, just to have it be void.
Gotcha.
So,
Okay.
you know.
All right, thank you on all that. Lynn, you have on item 2 under work session, discussion of zoning code update.
Okay, so I sort of was holding off on being more specific on that item to see how much enthusiasm we had for the first item. And we had a lot of enthusiasm for that topic, so I'm not going to keep us here all night, but I've given everyone sort of a set of handouts that reflect building heights at the Cornerstone Business Park. They reflect calculations of heights and setbacks at the Cornerstone Business Park, and there's a graphic of historic industrial building heights. And so there's a lot here because this has been a topic since, again, Project Dumbo, and residents have inquired about it at the various public outreach events and are concerned that we haven't updated, that this won't be updated in the new code. The current code reflects the standard that was determined by judgment. And so we're back to the 1989 code relative to I-2 and I-3 building heights. And so the way that language reads, if you look at the 1989 item on the timeline, maximum building height is recommended by Planning Commission and the mayor and confirmed by City Council. No, that's not, I don't think that's right.
No limit in building height, but requires conditional use permit or review.
Okay, it doesn't, the way this is written is maybe a little bit confusing. It allows for a 35-foot building height, but it doesn't cap it. There's no actual limit. It requires a 2-foot additional front setback, a 2-foot additional rear setback, and a 1-foot additional side setback for each foot of building height above and beyond the 35 feet. And that's been relatively standard in all of these codes that Twinsburg has adopted. It's maybe fluctuated where, okay, the building height is 50 feet and now you only have to move it back a foot instead of 2 feet. But some format of, we're going to mitigate the increase in building height by increasing setbacks. That's been part of this for the most part, except early on where we said, well, the building can be as high as our ladder truck, or as high as the fire department says they can put out a fire. And then in 2012, we said, okay, we are going to cap the building height. We're not going to just, you can go as high as you want as long as you keep moving the setback. In 2012, we said we're capping it at 45 feet, but we're taking away that equation where we move back a couple feet for each foot in increase. And in 2012, we also took away the requirement for a conditional use permit. And that's what I really want to talk about tonight. Whether we cap this at 45 feet or we keep the 1989 code where it's 35 feet, but you can go higher if you meet the requirement of the equation, that's all fine, because when you look at the calculations and the building heights at Cornerstone, each and every one of these buildings is over the 35-foot criteria, and each and every one of them meets the 2-foot increase per foot standard.
And none of them are greater than 45 feet.
Yeah, and none of them are greater than 45 feet. And all of them, even though conditional use permits weren't issued for them, each and every one of them would meet the criteria for the conditional use permit. My problem with the conditional use permit is the use permit is for a use. it's not appropriate to have a conditional use permit tied to this structural component. Because how will you undo that? Oh, well, you reconfigured the lot, and we're gonna take away the conditional use permit, so rip off a couple feet. It's not appropriate to this structural dimension. And so I'm wondering if that was added because folks wanted to have a public hearing component associated with the building heights. That's my guess. Oh, okay, we want to know if we're going to get a higher building than 35 feet, so let's toss in this conditional use permit because that requires a public hearing. And so then we've done this by conditional use permit theoretically for years before 2012. But there's no mechanism for revoking that permit. It's not tied to use. In this situation, it's tied to structure. It doesn't make any sense. When we issue a conditional use permit for outdoor dining or outdoor storage, you can review the use characteristics and put conditions on the use. Well, we don't want any music outside after midnight, or you're not going to store vehicles within 25 feet of Tinker's Creek. Those are things that we can enforce. Okay, those are use oriented, and if you can't meet those conditions, then your use needs to cease to exist at this location. But the height thing, it's just, you can't change it.
So it's not,
Permanent, like the
yeah,
footprint of the building.
Yeah.
it's not that, we like the idea of having the formula for the increase.
Yeah.
It just shouldn't be tied to a conditional use request.
Right, and so I guess my thought in terms of meeting what the public seems to want, what I hear them saying is, this is a guess, nobody has said this to me, but we want this public hearing component. I think if we leave it either at 35 feet with the allowance for a height up to 45 feet with the additional setback, and we have a public hearing.
Which is fine, it's just
Right.
getting rid of the conditional use
Yes.
notation.
Yeah. Because when we have a project in our public facilities district, we have a public hearing, but we're not issuing ourselves or anybody else a conditional use permit necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like the conditions, we're putting it into the formula, that the condition of getting the increase is by adding on 2 feet
Exactly.
and 1 foot on the sides. If we want anything else included, we just need to amend the code to say, well, and in that extra 2 feet, you need to have trees. Or you need to-
Absolutely, absolutely.
As opposed to saying, well, I guess the conditional use aspect of it allows you to do a case-by-case review
Yeah.
to do it, but I can see why you don't like it as a conditional
Right,
use.
from my perspective, that makes no sense whatsoever that we're issuing a use permit for a dimension that is in the code.
Yeah.
I think we can get everything we want with, and still remove that.
David, you have?
So the question I have, and again, I don't know, that's why you asked, is buildings today, warehouses that are built today, they all seem very standard. Whether you go to Cornerstone, whether you go over there to Cannon, Pettibone, all those warehouses they're building over there, Cochran and Pettibone over there.
Right.
They all seem like they're about the same height. I look at the Cornerstone here, 42, 37, 39, 41, 39, 44, 44. My guess is that those buildings are not generally built at 35, based on the fact that they all
Are bigger.
are bigger.
Right.
I would almost think, just thinking out loud, that maybe you set it 40 is the start, and anything over 40 maybe goes to this, to
The calculation.
the calculation, because I think at 35, again, unless you want the public component, but the public component, my guess is at 35, the public component can be, well, we don't want that because we live close, and
Yeah.
the argument's going to be, well, every warehouse needs 40. You
Right.
know, because it's right here. Every warehouse does need 40. So maybe start at 40, and every foot over 40 goes to,
Right, and in reality, the setback for one of these buildings from a residential use is 100 feet. So if you go from 40 to 45, and you're adding 10 feet to something that's already 100 feet, you almost really can't even tell the difference.
right.
But, so what?
Right.
we can do it, but it, you know, the setback from East Aurora Road at Cornerstone is 100 feet from a major thoroughfare, 100 feet. So we went further with these building heights, but I don't know that you can tell the difference.
Right.
What, the FedEx building, what do I have on that calculation sheet?
39.
It's like, I don't know,
Oh, distance from the road, you mean?
yeah. So on FedEx, it's 39 feet.
500.
That would be 2050 East Aurora Road. It's 559 feet.
You're far, yeah, you're far back.
Way back there.
Where do you have that?
It's on this handout.
Oh, I'm like, what? Oh, okay, thank you.
The 158 of what was required, they did at 559.
Yeah.
And the rear, yeah, they've 286 at the rear.
Oh, there we go.
So I think keeping that mitigation equation there is good, so we're covered in case there would be a scenario where you weren't setting the building back that far. It just seems like, as David's noticing, these buildings look very similar. They're not just tall, they're huge in terms of their square footage, and there's all kinds of parking associated with them as well. So you sort of have this inherent setback scenario because of all the parking needs, and then the stormwater management features. But we don't have to come to a conclusion this evening with this. I'm not looking for a motion. This is
For thought and
food
consideration.
for thought.
So I have a question, you know, the example of the FedEx, but is there a cap? They're so far back, so how, in theory?
The cap is
how far-
45 feet.
40, okay, it is 45 feet, that's what I was.
It's no longer the cap. That was the cap that was instituted in 2012 after Chrysler closed, and the thought was, okay, we got to streamline this a little bit.
Okay.
Maybe that was a thought, and we have to,
Yeah, I thought you said 1989 was the,
well, we've gone back
That's-
to that.
We got tossed back to that because of the court.
There was a court
Saying that what
case.
was done in 2012 was not done the way, as a charter.
Okay.
It wasn't voted on and approved,
So now you can have a 55-foot building if you
Now
want.
you can, and I
so
don't.
that's what I'm saying, how tall could they in theory have built that building?
Well, yeah, at
A big
550
piece of
feet
parcel that could
back.
have gone as tall as they could, as long as they continued to get the additional setbacks.
Right.
So, I mean, I guess, is that what we would want?
Well, what
Well,
we
no.
probably need to do
Right,
is,
cap it at
what we're
45.
putting
Right.
together in this is, because it's still going to have to go to a vote of the
Yeah,
people.
yeah.
Right.
Is start at 40, do the formula, but say no higher than 50 or whatever we want.
Right.
What I was asking.
Right.
Put that in as part of the reg.
But thinking about what you just said, actually, the fact that it does go to the vote of the people, and the people do want a say, of course.
Yeah.
I almost think that if we've had this 35-foot width, you know, as you increase, you know, I'm just rethinking my thought of starting at 40.
Yeah, I think you
That's a-
stay at 35.
If you just keep it at 35, you'll have more people likely to be like, yeah, we can go with that, than just going right to the 40 like I suggested. I just, again, interestingly enough, there's no building here that's only 35, yet interestingly enough, they could go 45, but not one building
Is
did go
45.
45. So I just find that very interesting, but I think, so based on that, for the PR
Side of it, stay at
side of it,
35.
I would retract what I said before to go to the 35, because it just makes sense, you'll get more support of the community, I would bet.
That was my thought.
Yeah, because currently, they can go any height, right?
Correct.
So we're actually we're being good. We're capping it at 45 now.
Well, that's what we
Let's
thought
start at
we did.
35, cap it at 45 with additional setback.
Right.
Yeah.
Because we've got some architects and engineering types here, and a planner.
I don't think people understood what this said when it went to court.
And a fireman who does deal with code and standards. Is there any kind of national or common standardization for warehouse design, setbacks versus heights, that you guys deal with
For setback?
for design of,
Or-
building
Well,
heights?
building heights are usually set up to either racking systems or cranes, the types of cranes
Yeah.
that they have.
No
that they need-
standard of
think-
measurement of this is kind of your gut check for
No.
clear span or anything?
Yeah,
like
it
that?
really,
No.
really the use of it is different on each one and dictates it. But
Okay.
as David said, I mean, everything is really kind of falling into that 40-foot to 45-foot range. I mean, we've never done 60 or 70-foot,
Right.
you know.
Just too high to
industrial
pick.
buildings. Yeah, it starts to get out of whack. Your racking systems can't go that high.
They
And
won't precast it. Anything over, I think 48 feet is the maximum precast.
Yeah.
'Cause these
Okay,
are all
that's what I'm
These are all
gathering.
tilt-up
That's what's
buildings.
governing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right,
So,
Because those
but it
sort
is the
of
racking
things
system.
help when you're trying to explain it to voters on, this is why this proposal's coming here. Here's the thoughts behind it.
Yep.
If
Thanks.
someone wanted to put offices above the warehouse as opposed to taking up warehouse space on the floor. So if you put the offices above, you actually increase your warehouse space underneath, because now you're not taking up warehouse with offices. I'm just thinking out,
Never done, I mean, we have done.
just thinking outside the box, yeah, I don't know.
Cantilever second floors into warehouse spaces, but never on top of
It's
the
always off
full,
to the
up
side,
at,
yeah.
70, 60 feet up in the air for the office above, a giant crane every time it moves.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking,
Look at you. All right, I'm not hiring you to design my
That's
next
some good
office.
casino design, though.
You see
Okay,
the structural
so
engineer going like, what are you, crazy?
I think my new jumping off place with this, when I work with the consultant on this, is we're gonna keep the 35-foot height with the equation to mitigate the increased height with additional setbacks.
Right.
We're gonna cap it at 45 feet, or do we wanna cap it at 50 feet?
I would probably cap it at 50 feet.
50 feet. And we want to have a public hearing associated with anything over 35 feet. And, yeah, once we implement the equation, we're going to have a public hearing. And we'll remove the conditional use permitting certificate, because
it's permanent.
it's
So
not,
basically, we're
that
taking-
doesn't make any sense.
We're taking what we have now.
Yeah.
Getting rid of the conditional use aspect of it, keeping a public hearing and maxing it out at 50.
Yeah, mm-hmm.
That's good.
About landscaping, I'm putting landscaping issues in there?
Well, there are some landscaping provisions currently for setbacks.
I think if we want to ramp it up in these scenarios, we do it in the landscaping chapter. If we
Where
want to.
where it
Oh, that's
doesn't
weird.
become something for us to discuss as a conditional use.
Yeah,
If
thank
you
you.
increase it,
You have to
the
have
landscaping requirement states
Yeah.
that you need to add more trees or.
10-foot high trees or
Yeah,
something.
whatever,
that
yeah,
looks
whatever
so
it is.
high and
Yeah.
then-
And the way I've handled this, just as sort of a staff negotiated item, has been, hey, you've got these really large buildings, and you have a significant side yard here. We'd like to see some native trees. I don't want to see crabapple trees there. Could I see some oaks, or, large maples? I need some native trees.
Right.
And most people will accommodate that, but I think we could formalize that in our new landscape chapter. Don't give me this medium-sized to small tree when you have a 45-foot building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you have this 6-foot
Right,
tree,
right.
it goes out, maxes at 8 feet.
Yeah.
Put a dwarf maple in, dwarf Japanese maple.
Right, right. Okay, so I have Mr. Walker's notes.
Okay, so we're good on that, Lynn?
Yep.
All right, so nothing else then on that, so it's 7:55. We'll roll into our regular meeting portion of the agenda. The first item is public participation and the opportunity for members of the community to address planning commission. Seeing none. Item 2, the ordinance 121, 2023. Is there anything else, Lynn, that really we needed to say, or can I have Michael go ahead and make the
I think you can go ahead with the motion. Yep.
Go for it, Michael.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chairman, I move that the city planner or their staff provide to council at its next meeting a summary of this commission's discussions and recommendations during its work session on December 4th, 2023, with regard to ordinance 121-2023, section 1103.11 of the Twinsburg zoning and development regulations, and chapter 151 of the Twinsburg Administrative Code regarding the city's environmental commission. So she passes a summary of what we talked about during work session.
I could second that motion. Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Mr. Shipley,
Yes.
Mr. Hogler,
Yes.
Mr. Shebeck.
Yes.
So you can update it based on the discussions of markups,
Yep.
issue them to everybody. Everybody have an opportunity to look at them as fast as you can. If you have any further comments, you can get it, reply all, that way it goes to everybody.
Yeah.
So if there's any conversation needed. Sure. All good, everybody on that? Okay, communications and miscellaneous. Ed, anything?
No, sir.
Steve?
I have nothing, thank you.
Craig?
I just emailed you a couple dates I can't make for next.
Okay, all right.
So just look, one of them is for sure, two are iffy, depending
Okay.
on when I have to travel.
Is the next meeting one of those on the
No,
18th?
it's not.
Not until 2024. Anything else?
No.
Michael?
22 January, I'm going to be on my 2 weeks active duty.
And that's one that's iffy for me, depending if I have to present on the 23rd, I'll be traveling on the 22nd. If not,
Okay,
Assuming
I'll
good
make
health, I
it.
still got a quorum.
Yeah, I mean, we'll
We can
have,
offer
we'll have
opinions via
three.
email.
And when there's three, Lynn, again, we need two.
Right.
We don't need all three of us. It's not 3 of 5, it's 2 of 3.
right. And we may have some projects on that agenda. The Creekside Drive daycare, Kitty Academy is going to Board of Appeals this week, so we'll see if they get a variance approval for their parking situation. The Bright Path Kids Child Daycare on East Aurora Road, we got confirmation today that the county validated the ballot and certified it. So I would expect them to submit for January. I already have the lot consolidation plats and the dedication. We're looking at the easement language. They did some soil borings. I haven't seen an updated site plan, but they're hauling. So I would fully expect that project to be on the January agenda.
As a final site plan
Mm-hmm.
approval.
Yeah. I believe it is fully engineered at this point.
Well, they're serious.
Yeah. So, yeah, if we're 2 men down, if we could just communicate with each other to make sure we have a quorum. Because, I'm always game for changing meeting dates if I have to.
We'll try to stay on time. As of now, there's no issue that you know of, at least at this moment. Okay. Well, I'll let you know if something pops
Okay.
up. Anything else, Lynn, on?
That's it.
And we jumped over, David, do you have?
Yeah, I just want to, one final thought. This is going to be my last meeting, as at the beginning of December, we change over council, we get a new president, and we all get new boards and commissions to work with. So I know that I did say if I can stay on with the planning for another year, I'd love to, but I think they like to shift it around and rotate it. That being said, I learned a lot this year, and I'm so glad that I was here, and all of you bring so much to the table. You were all very educated, well-spoken, and I learned a heck of a lot. And so I'm actually, I think I'm going to be on the ARB next year, and I'm looking forward to learning a lot from them as well. But I just want to thank you all for a great year, and I really, really enjoyed being here. And you all are a great team, so thank you.
Good to have you.
Well, thanks for that. We'd like having you. We'll miss you.
Yeah, we liked having
You
you.
don't have to lie.
Yeah,
Gosh, I
You were
can't wait to
great.
see who we get. I'm really excited now.
You live 20 seconds from me, I'll see you there.
All right, so the next meeting is in 2 weeks.
yes.
We do have, you talked about January agenda items. We do have,
We, in
You have
theory,
something?
right now, have a submission. It has some significant issues. I don't know that those can be rectified yet and have a submittal for this month.
is that the only thing that, at the moment, that we're looking at?
Yes.
So there may or may not be a meeting
There,
depending on.
there is another, another ordinance being proposed relative to code enforcement that will be a new section. And that will be part of Title 11, and that'll be, probably, might even be more challenging than this environmental commission language.
Well, if you
But I think
want us
we're-
for that, then I
Yeah.
guess we'll be here.
Yeah.
And you'll let us know.
Yeah.
All right.
Hey, hey.
8:02, adjournment.